Welcome to the podcast, Chris Graham, Scott German. We're going to talk UVA athletics, focusing on basketball and football. The football season wrapped up. Now we're in the silly season with the transfer portal. We'll talk about that on the second part of the show. But first, we'll start with basketball, men's basketball. Tomorrow, Syracuse, first ACC game in JPJ for the 2023-2024 season. So ACC opener for Virginia. But we'll start with the game earlier in the week, Virginia and Texas A&M in the ACC SEC Challenge. And Scott, I'll admit going into that one, after the way Virginia had played last week, I didn't have a lot of confidence. Texas A&M, a team that still leads the nation after the game. They lead the nation still in offensive rebounding. Virginia, that's the one sore spot this season has been defensive rebounding. So, Texas A&M coming into the game ranked fourth in the nation in offensive efficiency, according to Ken Palm. And I did not expect to see what we saw, the 59-47 win for Virginia in that one.
Yeah, and, wrote a story about if you did a quick glance at the stat sheets without looking at the score, you might have thought that game wasn't going to turn out like it didn't turn out like it actually did, because Texas A&M kind of did what they were supposed to do against us. But we took care of the ball, limited turnovers, and they didn't. And as their coach said before the game, Coach Williams, is because of the tempo, one turnover is not one turnover. One turnover is equivalent to four. So if the Aggies had 16, so I guess that's quick math. That's equivalent to 64 in a fast-paced game. And
his math's a little off there, but still,
yeah, his math is way off.
The point's made though. Yeah,
yeah. If you commit 64 turnovers in an 80 possession game, it's gonna get ugly quick.
But they did have a turnover percentage right around. It was a little above 25%, and they shot 30%. So that tells you how much of a challenge it was for that Texas A&M team.
Yeah, Buzz is quite the character. I think he should be a politician, because I think a lot of things he says, he doesn't really care whether they would be fact checked or not, right?
But 16 turnovers in a 62 possession game, they normally play a 70 possession game. That's at least a couple more. 16 turnovers in any game. That doesn't matter what the pace is way too many. They came into the game averaging 15% had a 15% turnover rate, per possession. So, 10 more than 10% above that rate forced by Virginia, compounded by the fact that Texas A&M only shot 30.4%. They were 4 of 23 from three. This is a team that came in averaging 79 points per game, 79.3 points per game. They scored 47 points in this game. I mean, it's, all these numbers are astounding. This is a Virginia team that, defensively, this is as good as we've seen a Virginia team play defense in several years.
But Chris, not looking, kind of looking at the glass as half empty or half full, what perspective. We haven't been this bad in rebounding, if I can remember, for a long time.
Since the Dave Lato era, yeah.
Yeah. When is it going to start becoming problematic?
It already is problematic. I mean, it's already something that Tony Bennett's having to game plan around. Curiously, though, when I saw the starting lineup a few minutes before tip Wednesday night, Jake Groves was starting at the 5 spot.
5-guard lineup, right?
Basically, yeah, he's a 6'9" 3-point shooter, and Ryan Dunn's a 6'8", guard. So, and he was the 4, if you want to say, the power forward. And so starting Groves was just the indication that, hey, I'm just going to go with what I got. This is my best lineup. And he's for all the critics out there who say Tony Bennett, sacrifices offense for defense, he's sacrificing defense for offense. And he did it last year too. Ben Vanderplas is not the defensive player that Caden Shedrick is. But he started Vanderplas. He wanted to space the floor with a big who can shoot threes. And so he did that last season. Virginia won 25 games, got bounced in the first round of the tournament on a last-second shot. But this year, he's he could start. He's got Blake Buchanan, who's a 6'11" true freshman who's played well in spurts. But he's apparently decided. I mean, if he's going to send Groves out there against Texas A&M, the best offensive rebounding team in the country, Tony's saying, okay, we'll give up some offensive rebounds to the other team, but we're going to space the floor with Jake Groves, who scored 12 points in the game and had a 7-point run late that broke the game open. We're going to focus on offense, and we're going to win the game. We're going to win games that way.
More Groves might result in less Buchanan or Bond.
It's certainly Buchanan. Bond is an interesting case. He's a 6'5" guy, so he's too small to play in the post much. He's stout, but he's 6'5", and so the way you can tell what position Tony puts a guy at, and this is the trick for the fans out there who maybe aren't into the nuances so much. This is an easy tell. On offense, what are they doing on the offensive side? Are they setting screens or are they running off screens? Bond is still a guy who, when he's in the game, he's either a 3, which means he's one of the 3 guards. He's either running off screens. Occasionally, he's still playing one of the 4 or 5 spots. He's still setting the screens, but he's a guy who rebounds. That's what he does. He right now he's one of the team's best rebounders per 40 minutes. He's the best rebounder on the team, and but he's just a little undersized at 6'5" to be that guy. So, and his limitation is he can't shoot. He's not a 3-point shooter yet. His jump shot goes out to about 15 feet. He's pretty good he's really good within 15 feet, but he's not a guy who can make you pay on the perimeter. So he's got to develop a little bit more skill, either as a perimeter shooter or he's got to grow taller. You're not going to grow any taller, so he's going to have to develop the perimeter skill to get more minutes. But no, Groves being out there at 6'9", you got to watch. They set those screens with him, and he pops to the 3-point line. You got to be if you're a defender, you got to be paying attention to him at all times, and that opens the floor up for whoever he's setting the screen for. If it's Beekman or Rhodey or whatever else, they can run under that screen and get in the lane with the ball. So he's that's what he does on offense. He's a much better 3-point shooter, much better 3-point option than Ben Vanderplas ever was. It's just a matter of who's going to get the rebounds.
It's Groves is going to probably end up being like a Sam Hauser. We hardly got to know him.
Yeah, grad transfer. Yeah.
But I think this season, as the season progresses, he's going to be a really a player that Virginia can relate to, because he's not afraid to getting in there and mixing it up. As we saw Tuesday or Wednesday night, I talked to him a little later on after even after the press conference. He told me that he didn't even know he had gotten cut. A cut that required at least 4 stitches, and about Ethan Saliba probably deserves to be on a NASCAR pit crew somewhere, because he put about 4 stitches in his upper eye in about 30 seconds.
I would say cut man for a boxer.
Yeah,
that's his job.
Tony was trying to equate who that was, and he was a boxing trainer, and I think he never did come up with it, but I think he was looking for was it Freddie Krachenko? Was that
Pacheco? Freddie Pacheco. Yeah.
I was
the fight doctor, Freddie Pacheco. Yeah,
the fight doctor. And so Groves is going to be that kind of player, and right now Buchanan's not. He's just not. He needs to. Buchanan needs to spend some time with Mike Curtis. It's obvious.
It does. That's going to take time. That's unfortunately that's not something you can even do in season. You don't just get stronger, right away. He's going to need some time in the offseason to bulk up. I mean, we saw it. His one really good performance was that Florida game against a really big Florida team. He had 17 points in that game, I think it was. He was 10 of 16 at the foul line, but he just couldn't power through the and one opportunities. I don't know if he even made one of the shots that he got fouled on. When he strengthens, when he gets stronger, he's going to finish those. Also rebounding. He didn't have a rebound the other night. I lost track of how many minutes he had. He was in low double digits in minutes, but he did not have didn't have a rebound in the game. So if you're going to be 6'11", you got to get some. You're going to have to get some rebounds. And if you're not going to get rebounds, you're wasting time on the floor, especially if you can't space the floor like Dunn can. So, yeah, that's the problem right now that Virginia has is just lacking a strong post presence. But Tony knew this when he was recruiting, off the transfer portal in the offseason after the loss to Furman. And I just think he's a guy. There's no Jack Salt here. There's no Isaiah Wilkins here. He wants guys in the post who can spread the floor. This is a new era of Tony, and it's he signaled it last year with Vanderplas. He's looking for more guys who are 6'9", 6'10", 6'11", whatever they are, who can actually do stuff on offense from the perimeter to space the floor for those guards to be able to drive under them. So this is the way Tony plays basketball now on offense. It's very different than it was even just 5 years ago.
He's evolving with the way the game's played now.
Yeah,
definitely is. So what are your thoughts about Gertrude's red shirt being burnt and him now part of the rotation?
Well, you heard Tony say it the other night after the game. He made the decision not because Dante Harris is on crutches, sprained ankle, I guess, in practice. I didn't see him do it in the game last week against West Virginia. So sprained ankle in practice, and he had a cast on, walking cast on his foot, and he was on crutches. So it wasn't because of that. He said that, Tony said that just talking with his staff, they could see that Gertrude was healthy. He was very athletic. We saw the athleticism. He got called for a foul that probably wasn't a foul. He blocked one of the Texas A&M bigs at the rim on a dunk, and he, 6'3" guy jumped up and blocked the dunk. Maybe the refs were a little astounded at his athleticism there too, and figured he had to foul him. There's no way he blocked that shot. The replay showed it as a clean block. But he skied for a couple of rebounds. He airballed his one shot, but Tony even said he airballed that three, and then he still had a big smile on his face. And I guess just because he's playing, he missed his senior season of high school ball with that torn ACL. Boy, what was he like before that torn ACL as far as that athleticism looks? He's a guy that, you could see it. He's got bounce, and that was his first game. He played 8 minutes, 4 minutes each half. Tony didn't burn a red shirt so he can, just play a few minutes here and there. He decided that he's a guy who's going to contribute. So it'll be interesting to see what he does with his team going forward.
Yeah, and airballs seemed to be contagious Wednesday night.
Yeah, Texas A&M threw up quite a few of them.
More airballs than I think I can remember seeing one team have in one game. I kept commenting, could it have been a depth problem that they just weren't used to the shooting backgrounds or something? Because
even in those cross court passes, that one that went like in the fifth row.
Yeah,
that was he winged that ball. He could be the quarterback at A&M under the new coach Mike Elko down there if he wanted to be. Yeah, and maybe who knows? Maybe they didn't get in town for a shoot around. Little things like that can have a factor because it is. We've both been on the floor, and not just on the floor after games, but I've been down on the floor early. It's intimidating that those stands are so tall and they're right on top of the court. It can be different. It's a different look than most arenas give. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a completely different look when you're on the floor like we have been. So I don't know. But I believe that Gertrude is going to contribute. You just think about what he was asked to do. He didn't get his first collegiate experience, came in a high pressure game against a really good team. It didn't come on a Tuesday night against Eastern Mennonite or someone like that. It came and he was expected to contribute right away. And I think you could see the athleticism. He airball, he didn't score, but that's going to come. And I think he's going to be a significant contributor to the team and probably be a part of that 8-man rotation that seemingly Tony kind of settles on, but as the season progresses.
Well, you certainly hope now that the red shirt is gone that he's got a chance at least. Tony thinks he can contribute. He thinks he can be part of that rotation. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes forward. Reece Beekman had a great night. Offensively, he put stats up: 12 points, 5 assists. He was 4 of 8 from the field. But defensively, on Wade Taylor, the point guard for Texas A&M, who came into the game averaging 20 points, 4 assists, he had he still has 4 assists. He had 5 turnovers, and he also only had 9 points on 2 of 10 shooting. And Beekman, was not known by a lot of folks. He was a game time decision going into that game with a knee issue. And so, you go from, game time decision, knee issue, wearing a brace on his knee in warmups, to he played 35 minutes. He was the linchpin on offense with 12 points and 5 assists. And then he just, held a 20-point-a-game score to less than half his season average. That's a good night for a guy.
Yeah. Considering that he was, like you said, up in the air, whether he would even play or not.
Right.
So, I don't know if we can move to Syracuse, but I haven't.
Yeah.
I think you going to have a preview up on Augusta Press, or you may already have. I haven't read it. So my question, and I don't know that I haven't watched Syracuse play, so I'm going to ask you a simple question: is this our father's Syracuse team?
It is, with one. The only difference is Adrian Autry, who's who was the longtime lieutenant, top assistant coach for Jim Boeheim for how many ever years. He uses his bench a little more, which is to say he uses his bench. Boeheim very, very rarely went to his bench. He played that 2-3 zone as a different kind of defense, but also it allowed his team to rest a little bit on defense. Of course they're playing defense, but they're not running through screens and everything else. And so he could, he would often, as the season went on, he would limit his bench to maybe one guy, maybe 2 guys, but at least at this stage of the season, 8 guys are averaging double-digit minutes for Syracuse. They got a couple of interesting things. You never used to see this, Scott. They got 2 in-conference transfers. J.J. Starling from Notre Dame is averaging double digits for them. And then Naheem McLeod, who was at Florida State, didn't get a lot of minutes at Florida State. He's the starting center at Syracuse, and he's tied for the league lead in block shots per game with Ryan Dunn. And so the 7'4" guy, so it's a classic Syracuse team. They're big. Their point guard is 6'4". They don't start anybody or play anybody regularly who's under 6'4". They've got a 7'4" center. You got to change. You got to change what you do offensively when you play them. You've got to play your zone offense the entire game. So Virginia, you won't see the sides offense. You won't see the typical things in terms of dribble penetration from the guards. You've got to post somebody at the foul line, use that person as your sort of point forward, and you've got to have your bigs moving around, behind on the back line there. This is where having a guy like Ryan Dunn at the 5 spot is a big advantage. When you would play a Caden Shedrick, he would have to get alley-oops at the rim. That's the only way he would score any baskets against this Syracuse zone defense. Maybe a loose ball situation or offensive rebound when things break down a little bit. But in your typical offense, a traditional 4 or 5 who only scores in the paint, the zone defense takes that away. But you've got a guy like Groves who can pop around. They've got to adjust what they do defensively to worry about him. So, long answer to your question, yeah, it's your typical Syracuse team. They're still figuring some things out lineup wise because 2 starters are transfers. Judah Mintz, though, is still he's back as the point guard. I thought he might have gone in the NBA draft. And I think he might have put his name in the draft. I didn't pay close attention to that, but he's averaging 20 points a game for this team. He averaged 19 a game against Virginia last year. So that 6'4" point guard, that'll be a great matchup to look forward to with him and Reece Beekman out there on the point.
Yeah, I hope Reece is 100%.
He needs to be. Yeah, we need him for this one too. Yeah, exactly.
You talk about in-conference transfers. In my early days of covering ACC basketball, that would never happen.
It was an unwritten rule. I don't
it was an unwritten rule. It wasn't.
Nobody did it. Yeah.
I don't think it was ever an NCAA rule that prohibited. It was just something the coaches kind of never did, I guess. But
You didn't poach the guys you played against.
yeah, and Syracuse lost a player, Gerard, I believe.
Yeah.
He's at Clemson
He's
now.
at Clemson. Yeah.
So yeah, it's man, that's just. I guess it's college basketball 2023. You just never know. It's like watching Brennan Armstrong, a record-setting quarterback for UVA, finish his career at NC State. I just still can't grasp that concept.
Yeah, oh yeah, I'm there with you. It's definitely weird to see that, and Starling's a guy that was a projected. He some people thought he might have been a one and done when he came out of high school. He's back for year 2. He was a freshman at Notre Dame last year, and he's averaging 11 points. I think he's averaging 14 points a game. He's only shooting 1 of 18 from 3. That's one limitation he's got, but he shot 30% last year, so he'll get better at that. But it's and of course Notre Dame's got a new coaching staff, a new look there after all the years of Mike Bray. That's a team we'll play later on in the season. So some new coaches, new blood in the league. The ACC's coming off a 7-7 finish in the ACC, the inaugural ACC SEC challenge. I guess we can blame Florida State for blowing it for us. They had a lead late and lost to Georgia.
17-point lead with under 7 left.
Yeah, and we would have won it outright and finished at 7-7. I guess that's appropriate. Maybe we can count it. Louisville beat Bellarmine this week, so.
Yeah, the Battle of Louisville.
They came back from a big deficit and won by 5 at home.
So I was looking at the ACC standings, and I know it's early. We just now, today is December 1st, so we've gotten, I call it the exhibition season, maybe out of the way, although the games count. Would it be a stretch to say the most disappointing team in the ACC after the first month is Duke?
It could be. They got a couple losses now. I mean, that's and that's unexpected, obviously, with that program, and just like everybody else in this day and age, I guess everybody else caught up to Duke. It used to be that, hey, Duke's got all these new guys. They gotta work all these new guys in. Well, now we all have new guys. Everybody's with the transfer portal got new guys, but I mean, for Duke, to have a couple of high profile losses. I mean, it's not like they lost to teams that are, that shouldn't be of the caliber that can beat you. But, 5-2 at this stage. I mean, this is a surprise. And especially the other night, when I say that, they lost to Arizona earlier at home, which is
at home. And they lost to an unranked Arkansas team.
Yeah, Arkansas. I mean, yeah, who knows? Yeah, so I'll take that. I'll take a little bit of that back. I mean, that was a tough environment. I turned that game on. That game was on TV after our game. So when I got back home from the Virginia game, I mean, Arkansas was out for blood. They announced a record crowd. It was very lively there. This is why Duke doesn't. I mean, Coach K didn't schedule, and now is. They still don't schedule. Shire doesn't schedule road games in November and December. This was the ACC and SEC scheduling it for them. They don't play true road games until they have to play games in the ACC. So, they don't have a lot of experience in these environments, and it showed the other night, I guess, is what that is. So, but no, talent wise, they probably have as much talent as they were supposed to have, but they're 5-2 at this stage. So yeah, I'd put them in the disappointing realm. Other than that, I mean, there's not a lot. There's the separation. I think is still there that we saw before the season. I still think the top 4 teams in whatever order are Carolina, Virginia, Duke, and Miami, and we'll see, how that pecking order evolves there. And I still think we're looking to see who can, join that group perhaps, or at least, approach that group from the other 11. Who do you think from the other 11 might, be in position to make a run?
Well, the team that gets all seemingly every single year, everyone starts jumping on their bandwagon is Clemson. And we all know that Clemson will go out 10-0, 11-1. And then in January, when the meat of the ACC schedule starts, they fall back to earth. So I'm not going to say Clemson. I do think Miami has the potential to drop out of that top four.
Uh-huh.
I, maybe I'm going to say as a surprise team, maybe State could challenge for that. I don't really know. I think there's a significant drop off after that first four, to be honest. And I'm not sure Clemson or Miami is going to be a team that can. I don't know. I think Miami is a little overrated at this point. I don't know. What would you say? I'm thinking State maybe, but I don't know if that's.
Yeah,
I think
State
this is
lost
a
by
big,
20 the other night to Ole Miss in the
yeah.
ACC Challenge. Clemson did, I mean, to their credit, they did go to Alabama and beat an Alabama team in the ACC SEC Challenge. So, they have otherwise played their traditionally pretty, light schedule to this stage, but their biggest win until the Alabama win was when you look at Ken Palm numbers. They beat Boise State at home. Boise State ranked 85th in Ken Palm. All their other wins are 100 plus. Miami at 5-1. Let's see, they lost by the Miami game I had on Tuesday night. They lost to Kentucky pretty bad. The final score was 22, and they were down big most of that game.
Yeah, that game was over early.
Yeah, they, a couple of one top 50 win for them, Kansas State on a neutral court by 8 points. They beat Georgia. That's a top 100 win. UCF a top 100 win, but they're going to be missing Isaiah Wong, and it's just no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Pitt has a couple of decent losses, no big wins. They lost to Florida by 15, a team that Virginia beat. I guess Florida's probably 2-1 in the ACC now because they lost to us. They beat the heck out of Florida State and lost to Missouri in the ACC Challenge. So maybe, jury's out there. We've seen Virginia Tech get beat pretty bad a couple times already this season. So yeah, I'm going down the list here, Scott, and I'm not seeing a lot from that other 11. We'll call them. Maybe
11.
having Miami join them and be the other 12.
Yeah. So not to pour salt in the wound, but going back to Duke, I have a friend that follows the Big Four very, very extensively, and we had a conversation last night, and he said the concern around Durham is that Shire is going to suffer what Hubert Davis suffered last year at Carolina, the sophomore slump, and that there's a lot of the old saying is you don't want to be the man that replaced the man, and Shire goes in and replaces Krzyzewski, who is still coming to the game, sitting somewhere near the court, which I don't understand that. That's and Davis replacing Williams at Carolina. I'm just wondering if that is going to have a lingering effect throughout the season with Duke.
Well, there's no box seats in Cameron Indoor Stadium because it's such a, it's a venerated venue, but it's also a crap hole of a place. When you actually go there, it's just a big old high school gym. So they don't have places. So if you're going to watch the game, you got to sit close if you're Coach K because there's nowhere to hide. Unlike at JPJ, you can hide in a box. You can't hide in a box there. There's no box.
The only box at Cameron Indoor Stadium is probably a box somewhere that an appliance came in and they just haven't disposed of it.
I mean, what they could sit him up. I think they sit him up there with the announcers on top of the stadium. But
yeah, and he's not really that tall, so he wouldn't have to worry about it. I've been up there before, and you have to, that's not a place that you're going to send Jay Billis.
No, that there's airplanes flying beneath you up there. No, their issues right now. I mean, you kind of look at their Ken Palm numbers. Defensively, they're not as good. They're 24th in the country, but I mean, with the talent they've got, 24th, is not going to cut it. And they're 14th on offense. So they're not rebounding offensively very well. They're not shooting the threes very well right now. So, and they're inexperienced. It's an inexperienced team just because it's a Duke team. They play a lot of young guys. I mean, Jeremy Roach is back. And I've often thought that Jeremy Roach is the best player on his team. He's a senior. He's been around for a long time now. That's very rare for a guy. He was a 4-star, borderline 5-star coming out of high school in Northern Virginia. And, I thought
for Duke to have a senior, you would expect that player to be a member of the academic team.
the GPA, the
GPA team.
Yeah. He's, and he was the best player on the team 2 years ago, that team that made the Final Four run, and he's still there. So, but I don't know that he's doing quite as much as they would have expected out of him, given his experience. So, you've got some issues there. Him and Tyrese Proctor, who's going to lead the team from the backcourt, who's going to control the flow of the offense. Filipowski's back. That's a surprise. And he's shooting 30% from three right now. That's he's a 7-footer who can stretch the floor, but he's shooting 30% from three. So, I mean, there's issues, but they've played a tough schedule. I'll give them credit for that. And they'll, and even though Arkansas ranked 45th in KenPom, losing that one on the road is not something that you want to brag about too much. But that was a tough environment. I think you get better from those kind of games. And I don't know. I'm not. The issue with Hubert Davis in his year two was his year one was a mirage. They had that hot run at the end that got them in the NCAA tournament. Then they got to the championship game. You beat Duke in the Final Four, got the championship game. But if they hadn't made that run to get in the NCAA tournament, they were going to be an NIT team that year. Basically his 2-year run is pretty much just that one little stretch that they had. And other than that one little stretch, they're an NIT team twice. And
he can only live off that in Carolina, but so long. Yeah,
I'm looking at his numbers real quick. They're 49-23, and then 6-1 this year, 55-24. But again, that run, how long was that run? They were, let's see, they went from 18-8 to 29. They were 11-1 over a 12-game stretch from middle of February to April. Other than that 11-1 run, those first 2 seasons for him, he would have been, let's see, take that out. It'd have been 38-21. So that's a pretty average team. I mean, they got hot at the right time, but I don't know if I feel the same with Shire. I look at, he's still recruiting the players. They still have the players. The issue at Carolina was that the mix of players, a little bit of addition by subtraction with Caleb Love leaving on the transfer portal, ending up at Arizona. He was their leading scorer last year, but he shot the ball so dang much. I mean, you and I saw a scouting report that you found a scouting report on the floor in the post game at the ACC tournament from Virginia. I don't think we've ever talked about that publicly, but you did. And the scouting report just basically said, Caleb Love likes to shoot the ball. Yeah. and he doesn't make a lot of shots. Shooter. And he's not that good a shooter, but he really loves it. He loves seeing himself shoot the ball. So, the mix of those players wasn't very good. And, they're fortunate that they got Armando Bacot back for another year. And the only reason he's back is because he's not going to play in the NBA. So he's a really good college player whose game
it seemed like he started his career with Jordan and Worthy and Perkins and Bacot.
He played in Carmichael when they still had the flip scoreboard, the little flip
on the quarter.
I watched the North Carolina, South Carolina women's game last night, and the Carolina women play in Carmichael. And
awesome.
But they don't have the little scoreboard. I mean, that's the thing. They need to get the scoreboard back. That thing was awesome.
That would be akin to Fenway Park taking it down to manually operate a scoreboard and putting a LED computer generated scoreboard out there.
You can still have your big LED crap all over the place, but just have somebody sitting there with that flip scoreboard, man. That's Carmichael.
Before we flip the scene here and talk more about football, just for those of you in the Valley, and this is going to sound like I'm doing a pile on JMU. For those of you in the Valley that want to go see a really good basketball game Sunday, JMU, number 23 JMU, plays Division III Keystone.
Yeah, that's
Sunday afternoon at whatever their arena's name is. What is up with that playing a division that was Eastern Mennonite or Bridgewater unavailable.
I can't, that is an anomaly right there. I mean, you can't say that, hey, we
Not
can't
a preseason game, not a game that you would play in end of October, but they're getting close to playing conference games now.
Yeah. That one is shocking. That you play VMI plays. They might play a couple of D3 games a year down in Lexington, but JMU is a program that is ranked. They didn't start the season ranked. They beat Michigan State at Michigan State in the opener, and now they're ranked. That's playing, even scheduling a Division III school should get some writers to not vote for them next week just because. And it's. There may be an excuse given from someone there. Hey, we have a hard time getting people to play us and that kind of thing, which is, they won 22 last year. They're in the top 25 this year. 2 years ago, they weren't a school and they're not traditionally a school that anybody's scared to play. So that's not the issue. They're not an up and coming Gonzaga, from back 20 years ago, that kind of thing. So, this is just scheduling an easy game. And I don't understand why you even do it. I mean, you play these kind of games in late October, early November before your season starts, just to get your feet wet, get your guys out there and playing in front of people. You don't play them to count, and they do this every year.
If you're going to do that, if you got to do that, then there is Eastern Mennonite and Bridgewater that just right in the same county. So,
but the Eastern, those Division III schools, they're not competing in recruiting for anybody that would play D1 ball. It's not like there's guys out there. If you're going to play somebody, I don't know the stat. It comes to mind is Virginia Union. Remember back in the day, Virginia, I don't know what they're doing now. I don't know if Virginia Union is still a national power in D2, but if you're going to play one of these games, play someone like those Virginia, who played at Union, guy who played for the Knicks all those years, Charles,
Oakley,
yeah.
Charles Oakley. And a lot of teams would not schedule VUU because they would get their clocks clean.
Oh my God, no! Nobody wanted to play those guys. But schedule if you're going to play down like that, play one of those. I think the same in football. I don't know why we're starting our season. We started our season. Oh no, we played William & Mary midseason this year. I think we start with Richmond next year. Why we do that? What's the point of that? Find an FBS, even if it's a bad FBS. But find an FBS. Don't play those. Don't play those down.
But Chris, we are a bad FBS.
Well, yeah,
we can't play ourselves.
We can't play ourselves. Well,
you can go get an East Carolina.
Vanderbilt has to play somebody.
I have a feeling that the reason we gave up the home game this year to play Tennessee for the paycheck was that for that very reason.
Yeah,
is you bring in a Richmond or William & Mary or VMI, and you're going to have a 30,000 seat stadium. You're going to have 30,000 people in the stadium, if that. So,
but Scott, we had 30,000. Now we're talking football. We actually had 30,000. I know they announced 42 for Virginia Tech, but little birdie told us there were actually 30,000.
Yeah, the turnstile count was 30,000.
So that's for Virginia Tech.
Yeah, that's a major problem.
It's amazing, and I like your joke about this every year. Your joke is always, "That's amazing." I'm disappointed in Virginia Tech for not filling our stadium up for us.
Tech should be ashamed of themselves. They only brought 15. The estimated count of Hokies in the stadium Saturday against was about 15,000. What's up with that?
The JMU game, the home opener this year, there were 55,000 people at that game. JMU Nation came out, man. What's up with Virginia? What's this Hokie Nation? I think your dad once said Hokie Nation, isn't it? Hibernation.
Yeah, hibernation. Yeah. So anyhow, one last thought on the JMU game. Maybe they were just trying to get that quad 10 win.
Quad 10 win. Well, and I don't know. We can go on a JMU.
I don't. It sounds like we're doing a bashing of that. I'm not.
No. It's deserved, and I equally bash Virginia for playing. They played William & Mary this year, playing Richmond next year. But here's another little flip I'll throw at JMU, because we should talk about this as we transition to football. Maybe they thought that a sellout in this game would give them some more money to try to keep a football coach there. losing their football coach, Curt Cignetti. It's not a surprise in one sense. Cignetti, 19-4 in 2 years in FBS, 52-9 at JMU overall, 11-1 this year. And but the issue being that because JMU just doesn't have the money, his salary was $677,000 this year. He's going to Indiana at the bottom of the Big Ten. I mean, if there's a Vanderbilt of the Big Ten, they're a competitor for that title. Them in Northwestern would certainly be in the mix for that Vanderbilt of the Big Ten. And Indiana still was paying their coach. They just fired $5 million a year, 7 times what JMU is paying Cignetti. So in that context, not a surprise, but it's not good news for JMU that, they're going to find another coach. He'll probably win some games, and then he'll go somewhere else, just like the other guys always have done in the last several years.
Yeah, you got to credit Jeff Bourne because he's done a good job. But as we talked the other night, when does the law of averages even out and he hires a clunker?
Yeah.
He hasn't. The last 3 coaches have been very good coaches at JMU.
And in this era with transfer portal being what it is, and you can transfer and play immediately at your next school, that kind of thing, you have to wonder if there might be, and who knows? We're as we're recording this, we're just a day after, 24 hours or close to 24 hours since the news hit that Cignetti was leaving for Indiana. But guys tend to transfer when their coach leaves. I mean, I was recruited by this staff. Now there's going to be a new guy. It's going to be a whole new staff. I don't know how I'll fit in with that staff. Maybe in some cases, guys will go with their coach. At least the key guys will try to transfer with their coach. They can play right away. They don't have to sit out a year. And so that can be a factor in the near term. Do they lose? Is there going to be a talent exodus in the near term? And then, then your next guy's got to be able to recruit to JMU. If the head coach is getting paid less than $700,000 a year, the assistant coaches aren't making a lot of money. So you've got a new head coach is going to have to, hire some up and coming assistants. That's the challenge at a place like JMU. It's not just JMU; it's everybody in Group of 5. But it's particular at JMU because there's no money there. 80+% of their budget comes from student fees. They don't have an alumni base that donates a lot of money. It's around $3 million a year. They don't get a lot of money from ticket sales. They don't get a lot of money from being a part of the Sun Belt. So it's not like there's some big donor out there saying here's a blank check. Go find the best coach and I'll pay him. There's nobody like that at JMU. They're there to, it's a revolving door essentially there at JMU.
Right. They're there to build a resume and move on.
I mean, and I remember, so I remember having a conversation about this with Dan Bonner many, many years ago, the ACC basketball analyst, UVA alum. When we were talking about the UVA basketball job before Tony Bennett got it. And Dan was going through with me a few of the possible guys. And I brought up that whole thing. Well, Virginia, maybe we're not at that point now. Obviously, Virginia basketball is a very prestigious job because Tony Bennett has made it so. But at that point, maybe Virginia wasn't a very prestigious basketball job. It had been 15 years since Virginia had been relevant in college basketball circles since the Jeff Jones era. And Dan said, well, that's okay. Hire a guy who comes to Virginia thinking that if he does a great job here, he'll get a better job. And if he leaves, he'll leave you in a better place than he found you. So that's what JMU's done well. Everett Withers was there for 2 years. I think he won 9 games each year. He handed it off to Mike Houston. Mike Houston's first year, they won the national championship. Obviously, what Everett Withers put in place, Mike Houston translated into a national championship. Houston was there 3 years, won 14 games 2 of the 3 years. He left to go to East Carolina. Curt Cignetti takes over. He goes 52-9. I mean, you mentioned Jeff Bourne has hired guys that have won games. And those last 3 coaches, I mean, they've turned it into, Everett Withers went to Texas State. Now he ended up getting fired at Texas State, but that was an FBS job. Houston goes to ECU, FBS job. And now the best of them all, Cignetti goes to a Big Ten job. So, there's worse things than being a cradle of coaches, but yeah, you got to get it right, because I was telling you this last night, Scott, when we were talking about this on the phone. if Bourne gets the next one wrong or the one after that wrong, I mean, whichever one he might get wrong, and it's you can't get him, you can't roll the dice and get it right every single time.
Yeah.
But if this next guy goes 5-7 next year, I don't know that it's easy. It's easy at a place like JMU to recapture the magic. They've got magic working for them right now. They've got all these years of winning. I don't know if you can come back from one bad season at a place like JMU. That might wreck everything.
Yeah, exactly. That was my point. If you hire the wrong coach or he just doesn't work out right, your magic may be gone and it may never be something you can recreate.
And speaking of magic that's gone, that will transition to Virginia, right? We hired the guy 2 years ago that everybody seemed to want to hire, Duke. Duke ended up hiring Mike Elko because he was their rebound guy. He was, all right, we didn't get Elliott, the guy we wanted, so we'll just go hire this guy from Texas A&M and bring him in to coach. Elko's now back at A&M as the head coach because he did such a good job at Duke in 2 years. And meanwhile, Tony Elliott, the guy that everybody wanted, he interviewed for the Tennessee job, says he was offered the job. Other schools considered him a top guy. We got the guy that lots of schools wanted. He's 6-16 in 2 years, and had a team go out there last Saturday, Scott. I have never seen a team more unprepared for any game, much less a rivalry game. And his first rivalry game, we didn't play Tech last year because of the cancellation of games after the shootings. So, I mean, I've never seen a team look as unprepared for a football game as I saw Virginia last week in that loss to Virginia Tech.
And I can't say I haven't because I'm unfortunately a little older than you, and I go back to the Sonny Randall days. And I saw Virginia have a stretch of 4 games.
Well, Sonny Randall lasted 2 years, right?
Yeah, he lasted 2 years. Even then, before Virginia was even trying to be successful in football, many people will say they fired Sonny after 2 years.
We had standards even then, right?
We had standards when we didn't care.
We didn't care.
So I have seen, I would say equivalent, but as far as just being totally not only unprepared, but seemingly uninterested. That was, and thanks, by the way, I'd almost gotten that out of my mind. The Wednesday night win over Texas A&M had pretty much erased that horrible Saturday for me.
Well, that's why we started with basketball, because if we just started with football, we would have been depressed through the basketball part of it. So.
Yeah, I've been going to look for some pills or something.
We went out and got into basketball. That's right.
Yeah. But obviously there's not going to be any changes made. So now you just got to jump behind him and jump and support him. So far, and I know it's early, but is this a stretch to say he's winning the offseason?
Nah, it's you can't. I mean, there are 4 names in the portal. Nobody of significance. If I want to say, I mean, every player is of significance, to somebody. But Justice Johnson is a name that was competing for time on the offensive line. Didn't get a lot of time. I don't even got any time. I should look at the stats and see. And I will do a roundup probably later today, Friday, as we're recording. Demick Starling is a guy that you might have heard the name, the wide receiver, but he didn't get in the mix this year because there were several guys ahead of him, I guess. And so there's a couple other names out there. No big names obviously yet, but you can't really enter the portal until I think it's Sunday night, midnight, Sunday night, Monday, whatever.
Yeah, Monday morning.
Monday morning, basically. Yeah, midnight. Clock strikes 12 on Sunday night. It becomes Monday morning, and that's when you can enter the portal.
But that's what I mean by winning. I mean, there was some fear that the few players, the quality players that we do have, Robinson, Sanker, Malachi Fields, Calandry, excuse me, would all be leaving. And so far, we don't see any evidence of that. So would that be counted as a win? Just retaining some of the players that we thought we might lose.
That's the qualifier, though, so far, or you could say not yet. Until, unless one of these kids puts on their social media that they're staying, that's the victory. I mean, if any of those names you just mentioned say we're staying, then yes, that's a huge victory. But right now it's still uncertain. I'm still updating the transfer. I have 2 transfer portal links on my saved on my bookmarks on my Google, and I'm refreshing them several times a day. Just because I don't want to see those names on the portal. Those are, the 2 building blocks for this team. If you maybe 3, I would put Calandria and Fields on offense. You keep that quarterback receiver combination together. Fields this year, honorable mention, all ACC with Malik Washington, the grad transfer from Northwestern, who had 110 catches. When he obviously we only had him for the 1 year. Fields comes back next year as the top option at wide receiver. You've got to have him. He's a big guy, 6'3", 220. He's got speed. You've got great leaping ability, so he's a great target. Got to have him, and you got to have Calandria because Tony Muskett he's got 1 more year of eligibility left. He'll have that COVID redshirt year left, but Calandria is the guy for the future. He burnt the redshirt this year, so he's got 3 years of eligibility left. You want to build around a guy who's going to be around, next year and then 2 years after to keep hopefully getting better. We saw him improve during the season this year. He was, a little careless with the ball at times early in the season. After Muskett got the starting job back for a couple of games before going out with the injury again against Georgia Tech. In that 3 or 4 week period, you saw Calandria go from being a guy who was a gunslinger to a guy, hey, maybe I should throw this one out of bounds and have it be 2nd and 10 instead of maybe throwing it in the other team's hands and getting intercepted. You saw a guy grow just like that within 3 weeks. Wait till you get a whole offseason, give him spring, give him the summer to work with guys. You're going to see great improvement of that guy. Need him. And then, on the other side, you need Jonas Sanker. That guy came out of nowhere. He's one of the top defenders in the ACC. He had 100-plus tackle season at safety, the first guy to do that at Virginia since Quinn Blanding, who was a 5-star recruit, got a little bit of time in the NFL after his time at Virginia. So, yeah, and Cam Robinson, obviously, too. So maybe it's 4 guys, we'll say. Because Cam Robinson, if we had a whole team of Cam Robinson talents, that'd be a pretty good team. And so if we keep all 4 of those guys, yeah, there's something to work around for next year.
And they've had a couple of commitments since. I think they had a commitment or 2 since the Tech game, I believe, haven't they? They weren't 5-star players, 4-star
and prep players, and Cam Robinson being and actually Calandria too. Calandria was under the radar 3-star. Robinson was a 4-star, the only 4-star we had last year. And you can see that those 2 guys were difference makers. But for the most part, you don't want to rely on your freshmen. It's going to be recruiting the transfer portal. It's going to be key for Tony Elliott. He needs to recruit at least 1 quarterback off the portal. And we're not talking about a starting quarterback, just depth. He needs depth in that room. Probably some help at wideout, some more help at offensive line, and depth in the secondary. So, he's going to have to work the portal. The recruiting is still 15th in the ACC. Now that there are 17 schools, we're 15th in the ACC in the 2 major rating services, Rivals and 24/7 Sports. Whatever value that is, I think there's some value to it, but not. You don't want to just say that's the only determinant of how good we're going to be. But not losing guys, re-recruiting your own guys, going out and finding some veteran guys from other schools who are looking for playing time. And then, we got a couple weeks to go before the first prep class. There's a December signing and there's a February signing. There's still some time to add some guys now. So working hard now. But I got to say, Scott, I'm disappointed that there's not going to be any moves made on the staff. The special teams coordinator, Keith Gaither, he's also the running backs coach. I'm not saying, get rid of him entirely. Maybe you can judge his running backs coaching performance, his performance of his group there differently, but they need a new special teams coordinator. We're not hearing anything about that. And honestly, Des Kitchings, 2 years, Virginia's offense last year was ranked last in the ACC. This year it improved a little bit. I think we're, still though in the, 10 or so range out of the 14 teams in the ACC in total offensive scoring and things like that. So, if we want more of the same, not good offense, then that's why we're staying there. It's frustrating to me that offense is a glaring issue, And 2 years ago, Bronco Mendenhall was pushed out because defense was a glaring issue, and he wouldn't fire his defensive coordinator and decided to just, take his ball and go home, to move to Montana. And a similar type ultimatum was not given on offense here. The offense is what's holding this program back right now.
That's to me, the perplexing point here is that I think I pointed out to you the other day on the phone, Vanderbilt, okay, who's obviously at the bottom of the pecking order in the Southeast Conference. After 2 years, Nick Howell, that ought to bring back some. Nick Howell, the defensive coordinator, was demoted after just 2 years. A school like Vanderbilt, who's obviously not going to ever have any aspirations of moving into the upper echelon of the Southeast Conference. That's how serious they take that. and going back to the Bronco situation, where we know that Bronco was basically given a mandate that he would have to replace his defensive coordinator. Why hasn't something like that been handed down to Tony Elliott? There seems to be two sets of standards here going on.
And
you can't look at it any other way, because I say that our defense, our special teams, and our offense were just as woeful as our defense was under Bronco, in which he was asked to make a change at defensive coordinator.
Special teams, particularly, we lost 2 games this year by a score. The 36-35 loss, and I'll bring this up. It just occurred in my head. 2 ranked teams. Virginia could have won games against 2 ranked teams if they could have just kept a punt from being blocked and returned for a touchdown. The 36-35 loss of JMU blocked a punt, returned for a touchdown. The 31-24 loss to Louisville, a blocked punt led to a touchdown.
And we talked in the press box, and we talked often. 1 block punt a year is all you should get.
One, if you have one, it should not be 2.
Can be contributed to a bad snap, wet ball. Ball could be wet. The punter could slip. I'll give you 1, but not only having 2 blocked in the same season, but both of them returned for touchdowns.
Yeah,
that's just not, that can't happen.
Well, and then so then the special teams factored in. The loss to NC State was on a literally last-second field goal, last play of the game field goal. That the first field goal try by NC State to win the game missed, but there was a penalty on the defense for what's called leaping, which is you're standing behind the line of scrimmage and then you run and try to jump over the line. We had that penalty last year in the Georgia Tech game on a punt. So, okay, that penalty should never happen. But
it should never happen
because
why should it never happen?
It should never happen because it's a rule. And
it's a rule, but the special teams coach has to know, his players have to know they can't do that.
They have to be. So if you're, I think this one was, I think it was Josh Ahern, but so I hope I'm not throwing somebody on the bus wrong there, but I think it was Ahern in this case. So the reason you keep a guy back behind the line of scrimmage is that guy's there to protect against a fake.
Right.
So now I don't know, they're not going to fake on the last play, but that's a reason you do that. In case they try to throw the ball downfield, you keep somebody back there, sort of like a spy, right? So, but you're back there, you can't participate, you can't run up to the line and then jump. It's a simple rule. Last year's game, the punt issue that was a very similar one. It was Lavelle Davis. I remember this one. Lavelle Davis had 1 snap last year on the punt team, and it was that snap, and they tried to block a punt, and it was a leaping penalty. So if it happens once, it shouldn't happen again. That was last year, but still, okay, hey guys, we've got burned on this before. If you're back off the line of scrimmage, you can't do this. We lost. That's 3 games, and NC State ended up with 9 wins this year. So it's not like we lost games to teams we shouldn't have lost to. Because of stupid penalties. There were 3 chances to beat good teams that were blown by special teams. It's basic stuff. If that unit is causing you to lose to an 11-1 team, a 9-3 team, and a 10-2 team, that guy's got to be gone. That's unequivocal.
So I'm gonna go back to the question. If that ultimatum was given to Bronco Mendenhall 2 years ago, which we know in the media, we know that for a fact.
And
Sorry.
we're the only ones who's reported it because we're the only ones brave enough to tell the truth.
We know. I'm telling you, I know we know that for a fact.
We know that for a fact.
And Bronco left because obviously he's a man of principle. He also left millions of dollars on the table by doing so.
Yeah.
Why? Give me a reason that ultimatum wasn't given to Tony Elliott.
Yeah, I mean,
what's going on there? What's behind the scenes that we don't know about?
We inadvertently pointed out that even Sonny Randall back in the 70s, when UVA didn't care about football, got fired after 2 years because even then, a school not really that serious about sports said, "Okay, even for us, this is bad."
Well, I'm not suggesting that Tony Elliott would be fired.
Oh, no.
I'm just suggesting why. I'm asking what possible difference is that nothing
has been done
to him, that he make a change in special teams that was just absolutely horrendous again this year. Again,
I mean, to be fair, Bronco shouldn't have needed someone to tell him 2 years ago that he needed to make a change on defense. That poor defense that year. Virginia had the number 3 offense in the country and finished 6-6. It was because the defense was that bad. No one needed to tell him, "Hey, dude, you need to make a change in defense." So when somebody did need to tell him that, that became a contest of wills.
And we don't know that if it was like 2 days after the season, right? 3 days after the season was over. Or was it a week?
He quit the season. The season ended on a Saturday. He quit on the following Thursday.
Okay, so
and he first.
We don't know what was going to happen in the ensuing weeks. There wasn't a lot of time. He probably would have made a change.
We can glean if he didn't quit, he was going to make a change, and if he quit, it's because he didn't want to make a change. I think that's a pretty fair assumption. He wouldn't have quit if he's anyway. I was going to do that anyway, but I'm going to quit. No, that's. But that said, with Tony Elliott, he didn't need anybody. He shouldn't need anybody to tell him, "Dude, you need to make a change at special teams." You probably should make a change in offense, but certainly at special teams. No one should. I mean, he's making $4.5 million a year to run the program. He should. His part of that $4.5 million is to be able to make basic decisions like, "Gosh, special teams cost me 3 games against 3 of the best teams we played this year. Maybe I should make a change there." And if it takes someone to tell him, then he should listen to that person. But I mean, there's too many smart people over there to not have figured this out. I can't figure out, Scott, why we're still having to talk about this. I've only been pointing this out for like a year and a half now, because this issue first reared its head middle of season last season with special teams, and we still are talking about the same thing.
And people are still in the same jobs. So
still in the same. I mean, how important special teams is. Frank Beamer built an entire program around special teams
and won many games.
Won a lot of games.
Right? Special teams.
Because he realized, if I put my best athletes out there and we practice things like blocking punts and blocking kicks, and if he amended everything he did. He had great defenses, great special teams. The offense just didn't screw up. But his defenses and special teams gave their offense short fields. They had great place kickers. So if they didn't, move the ball very much, they could still kick a field goal. They only needed to drive the ball 40 or 50 yards to get in scoring position or get a touchdown. And so, hey, I don't need my offense to take chances because I've got such a great defense and such a great special teams. And here we are, we're ceding 1/3 of the game away with awful special teams play. I mean, the return game is non-existent. We had 2 punts blocked, return for touchdowns. We had so many shank punts this year, it wasn't funny. Our field goal kicker, I think, was 11 for 18 this year. We weren't guaranteed if we were in the red zone that we were going to score points. And so that changes your calculus on offense. I mean, basic stuff here, Scott. How many kickoffs were returned big? I mean, in that NC State game I mentioned, now there was the unsportsmanlike conduct penalty that helped with that kickoff return, but the kickoff got returned to the 50-yard line. They only had to drive the ball 15 yards to get to field goal range to beat us. So, I mean, why does this only make sense to us? I don't understand. That's what I don't understand.
Speaking of kickoffs, and I don't know, you can fact check this or not, but I also read that we had the most kickoffs in the ACC that failed to make it into the end zone that were returned.
And when you saw the kid, I say the kid, the 34-year-old guy.
No, I mean, that's a great story. And
no, but he obviously could kick it off deep.
Right.
So what that told me was he was instructed to kick it short. And for whatever reason, I mean, we're trying to make them return it against us so we can maybe pin them inside the 25. But when the guy wanted to kick off deep, he kicked it through the end zone. Against Virginia Tech, we saw the ball a couple times go out of the end zone. So that's not, if you can kick it out of the end zone, you kick it out of the end zone. You don't just miss it and kick it 20 yard, to the 10-yard line. I mean, so that's a coach.
You kick it out of the end zone, and you're also reducing wear and tear on your special teams players a lot.
Well, and we weren't good on kick coverage, so but no, he didn't. He wasn't when he and this is with not just with Matt Ganyard. It's with every place, every kicking specialist, kickoff specialist. When they want to kick it out of the end zone, they kick those line drives.
Right.
Because the more air you put under it, I mean, it's going to be shorter. I mean, no one's got that booming leg. No one out there anymore is Sebastian Janikowski. I mean, the guy he was like a mule kicker so far. But when you want to kick off in the end zone, you the more line drive kick, and dare them to return that. And then when you want to force them to decide to return it, you that more pop-up kick. And so you're not going to do the pop-up kick and try to get it in the end zone. You don't do both. And so, I mean, that's a coaching decision. That you're not the kicker's not out there saying, "Hey, I want to kick it to the 10-yard line," or I can't kick it past the 10-yard line. I mean, that's not the situation there. That's a decision that's made. That's a decision that's made and relayed to the player. So,
well, I know we're running.
Yeah, we're running short.
Against the times, but I'll leave with this thought. Tomorrow it's 2 weeks since the debacle with Tech. The special teams coach, Catchings, the offensive coordinator, they're still there. They're not going anywhere now.
They're not going anywhere. No.
Well, you're going to have to dance with who you brought, because if you're going to make those changes are coming Sunday after that game.
No, it'll only be 1 week tomorrow. You made me think
right.
2.
That's right. It
only feels like 2 weeks.
But it's still, there's not going to be any changes.
Man. No, they would have happened Sunday or Monday. Yeah.
Which is just, again, I'm beating a dead horse here. It's just, I just can't understand how Bronco was basically ordered to make changes. And on a defense, it was horrendous. Yet there was apparently no such instructions given to Coach Elliott on special teams, and special teams is first. The offensive coordinator situation, I'll give you a little leverage on that, but special teams should have been a mandate.
Yeah.
You got to change that. I mean, to me, if that's not done, then somebody sleep at the switch there.
Even if you just shuffle positions around, keep Gaither on as running backs coach, maybe
you don't have to fire somebody. Just do what Vanderbilt did, demote them.
And that wouldn't
change positions a little bit.
It wouldn't even necessarily be. It'd be a little bit of a demotion. There'd probably be a slight salary change, but yeah, maybe throw someone else in the mix. Clint Centum, Chris Slade, and even a number of the other assistants could take on the special teams role. But yeah, we're not saying fire the guy and get rid of him as a staff member. Just he shouldn't be in charge of special teams. And anyway, hey, for our listeners out there, since we are wrapping up here. Obviously, Scott and I tomorrow will be at JPJ, 12 o'clock tip, Syracuse UVA. Also tonight, we have Scott Ratcliffe down in Lynchburg for us. Liberty at 12-0 in football. Hey, there is somebody playing good football other than JMU in Virginia. Liberty at 12-0, hosting the Conference USA title game. They'll play New Mexico State. I think it's possible a New Year's Six bowl bid's on the line there. Liberty was I think they were 22nd in the CFP rankings this week. So the top rated group of 5 school gets a New Year's Six bowl game, and they could be in that mix. So a win, and Sunday they may hear their name called for a big bowl. So anyway, we have Scott Ratcliffe down there tonight. And we have Scott and I tomorrow in JPJ. So a lot of good stuff coming up for you here. If you have any questions, anything for the mailbag, any topics you want us to discuss on a future podcast, please email me at chris@augustafreepress.com.